Hi, I'm Rob, N1NUG, and today I want to test out this portable Delta Loop antenna that I made for use with POTA. We're going to test it out on a real POTA activation. I'm here at Nye-Holman State Forest at the main entrance, and you can see there's a nice little field here kind of behind me that I should be able to use to set this antenna up in. This will be the first time I'm setting this up out here in the field, so to speak. I've set it up at home, and it seems to go up fairly easy. Maybe not quite as easily as an end-fed half wave, but easy enough. But the true test is out here in the field. So let's do that now and see how it goes. The first thing I think I'm gonna do is unroll the antenna and lay it out on the ground just to kind of get an idea of where I need to put my support pole. So for the support pole, I've got my Jacklite 31-foot pole. I've got some guy ropes tied off 2/3 of the way up, and I've got these sort of slip plates that I use to tension the wires. I am going to be putting some stakes in the ground here. I know it's okay to do that at this park, but not every park allows you to put stuff in the ground. So if you're going to use a setup like this, make sure you check your park rules before you do it. So I think right here should be a good spot to set the antenna up. So I'm going to move this back just a little bit so I'm away from the access road, and we'll get this set up. One thing I forgot was my mallet. But luckily the ground is soft here, so I don't have any issue getting these stakes in the ground. If you missed the video where I detailed how I kind of designed and built this antenna, I'll leave a link to that up here and down below. But I'll show you the highlights here. What I'm going to do now is grab my top support bracket, and you can kind of see the way I built this. I've got a ring terminal here and a plate that's designed to go over the tip of the mast, which is sort of right here behind me if I can locate it. Anyway, this is going to drop over the tip, and then the wire that is below the support is going to loop through a loop on the bottom of the mast, which I'll show in a minute, and then the top is going to go off the top and it forms a triangle and will reach the feed point, which I'm going to set up over there in the back of my car. So here's the support dropped over the top section of the mast. You can see it kind of just friction fits into the second section where it sort of tapers out. It took me 3 tries to get this set up without tangling the wires up at the top. I didn't have that much trouble at home when I did it. That's why we test these things out in the field. They're always a little bit more difficult out here. Anyway, the next thing I want to do is grab what I'll call the vertical wire, and I'm running that through one of my loops down here at the bottom, and then I'm going to carry that off to the feed point over there by my car. And then once I get that one stretched out, I'll grab the other wire, which sort of comes from the top of the support, and that's going to form the hypotenuse of the Delta Loop, and I'll bring that over to the feed point too. Now the feed point I decided to tie off to the back of the car here. I originally had planned to set up this pole in the field and then run a length of coax over to it, but I just thought it would be easier to do this rather than drive something else into the ground here. Now, as far as the radio goes, I've got a 3-foot piece of coax connected directly up to the radio. I'm going to operate here out of the back of the car. I shouldn't need a tuner or anything based on my testing in the yard. Now, from the feed point, you can see that the wires diverge in a triangle and go over here towards the mast. Now, I talked about this problem in my construction video, and I haven't solved it yet. I'm just going to try and operate the antenna this way regardless. But you can see here where the vertical part of the wire turns and goes back towards the car on the bottom. It is sort of touching the ground in the middle where the wire is sagging. And then there's sort of a better look at it as the wire extends off to the car. It's hovering just at the level of the grass here. It's not quite laying on the ground. I think it would be better if it were a few inches up off the ground, or even higher if I really could do that. But then looking at sort of the vertical part of the triangle, you can see it goes up the mast there, up at the top where it's sort of bent over, and then the hypotenuse of the loop goes back over to the feed point down to there. So now it's time to put the antenna on the air and test it out. Now, I will mention it's a Sunday afternoon in August, so there's probably a lot of people out of the shack and off doing other things with their families, but we'll give it a shot anyway and see how many contacts we can make here. Now, I don't know how band conditions are today either. That could be fighting us as well, but we're going to give this thing a try anyway and see if we can at least get the park activated with it. Is the frequency in use? Is the frequency in use? N1NUG. I'm going to start off on 40 meters here. The SWR looked pretty good just now when I transmitted. It's sort of the wrong time of day for 40, but I just transmitted to see if this frequency was in use, and I saw the SWR was pretty low, so I think we're good to go. I did tune around and listen a little bit, and I didn't really hear a lot of activity on 40 here, but we're gonna give it a try anyway. I don't know if that's just band conditions or this antenna sitting on the ground, but hopefully it works. CQ POTA, CQ POTA, CQ POTA. November 1, November Uniform Golf. November 1, November Uniform Golf, calling CQ POTA from US 6867 in Connecticut.
Kilo 3, Romeo Juliet Sierra, Roger, Roger to 5-1. I'll give you a 5-4 here in Papa Alpha, US 8736, 8736. Kilo Zulu 4, Bravo Quebec, Whiskey 4, Sierra Victor. November 0, Oscar Zulu. Kilo November 6, Kilo India. Victor Yankee 2, Delta Foxtrot Golf Park. Copy the 4-1 into Connecticut there. I got you at about a 5-5 here into Prince Edward Island today. And my two carts are Charlie Alpha 1278. And Charlie Alpha 4668, over. November 9, X-ray Charlie. Kilowatt America 4, Kilowatt Oscar Echo. 4 Echo Mike. Alpha Delta 8, Foxtrot Delta. You are about a 2-1 here into part number UF3553 QSL.
It seems like we were fighting bad band conditions today. I was able to get the park activated. I made maybe 12 or 13 contacts in about 35 minutes or so maybe. But it was a struggle. But there were some stations that came in from kind of far away. We had California and Prince Edward Island. In fact, I even had California on 15 meters of park to park, but that one was tough to pull out. He was down in the noise, and I'm sure I was in the noise to him too. So I think the jury is kind of still out on this antenna, whether or not it's really going to perform any better than an end-fed half wave. I do want to try it a few more times and see. I will tell you though that it is more of a pain in the butt to put up, although I think the more I do it, the more I'll develop a technique and it won't be so hard, at least in terms of getting those wires tangled up at the top. I guess time will tell. Now it's time to pull it down, but hopefully that's not going to be too difficult. I'll give it a try and see what happens here. So even when I'm pulling this down, I want to go slow and make sure that the wires don't tangle on me, because that'll make it harder to reel it up later. To try and keep the wires from getting tangled, I'm going to start by winding up the free end here and just kind of get this on here so it doesn't tangle on the other wire once I pull it out of the loop on the bottom of the mast. Of course, I've got it tangled around my foot there, but I realize you guys can't really see the detail of what I'm doing here, but I'm going to put my ring back on the top mast so I don't lose that pull. Now I should be able to just continue reeling this up as I go here. So now I'm up to the point where it's looped around the bottom of the rope here, so I'm going to pull this through. All right, now I should be able to roll this up the rest of the way, and I think we're good. I don't think this is going to really tangle up. So I think we're good. That came down fairly easily, and kind of wrapping it up on the reel here helped a lot with keeping the wire from getting tangled. I'll have to maybe use this as a trick when I'm putting it up. Maybe I can just unroll the amount of wire I need as I go, and that'll keep it from tangling. We'll try that on the next activation and see. And now I just have to take down my pole, which is kind of the same thing as if I were doing this for my end-fed half wave. I'll just pull the 3 stakes out, and we're really kind of done. As you can see behind me, I've got the antenna torn down. It's all packed up and in the car. I think that took maybe 10 minutes at most to take it down and pack it up. I'm hoping that as I use it more, I'll develop some better techniques for setting it up, and it won't take so long to actually put it up as it did today. Now, as far as performance goes, I'm not so sure. Band conditions weren't that great today. We were able to make, I don't know, 12 or 13 contacts or so in about 35 minutes, which isn't good, but it's not bad. Still, the jury's out as to whether or not this is any better than an end-fed half wave. I will say that the received background noise was low today. We heard the signals kind of coming in nice and crisp and not a lot of background noise. And that's kind of one of the benefits of a loop, so I think it's doing its job. But again, we won't know until we use this a few more times in different band conditions and see. But having said all that, I think today was a success. I'm going to try this a few more times and see how it goes. So keep an eye on the channel. Thanks for watching, and 7-3.